Hey there, welcome to the DFS Build NBA Edition, live stream edition. If you're here live, we appreciate you tuning in. If you have any comments or questions, you can hit us up on the comment board as we go, and we'll get to them. We're going to break down the slate here, hopefully nudging you in the right direction to help you win. If you want even more help going into lock tonight, big 13-game slate at DraftKings, so you might need that help. Just $5.99 a month to get access to our core plays for NBA every single day over at dfsbuild.com. And in addition, you get access to every other thing we do there. So definitely take advantage of that. If you just like free advice, hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and also hit up our Discord, which is linked in our YouTube. If you have any trouble getting access to that Discord, just let us know in the comments and we'll help you out. All right, let's get to it here. Hawks and Hornets, first game of the night here. Really nice, healthy total. We already have news. The Hornets are going to be without Miles Bridges, who, shocker, hit somebody. So he is not going to play. That opens things up, some value for Charlotte, and, of course, makes the other guys look good. For Atlanta, Jalen Johnson, Dyson Daniels, and Reza Shea are all going to be questionable. I would imagine they're back after missing the last game, but we'll have to keep an eye on that. So let's start on the Atlanta side. How are you feeling about Jalen Johnson if he's in? How are you feeling about the other guys if he's out?
Yeah, it is a pretty high total game with a reasonably close spread. And I don't really think Jalen Johnson, it's a huge slate, especially on DK. And I think everyone's playing Jokic because there's just an insane amount of cheap value. There's going to be one very obvious build that everyone's going to play. So pretty much anyone you play other than Jokic should be fairly variant. I think Johnson fits the bill. Obviously, the ceiling is massive every night. Even with these other guards in, like if Daniels is in, it doesn't really matter. He just has a monster role since they got rid of Trae Young. And Charlotte, while they've been better, is still not the toughest matchup of all. We're not getting a discount here. He's almost 11K, so that's pretty steep, but pretty awesome play if he's going to be 10% owned or less.
Yeah, I am very much Team Jokic on this slate, but if you wanted to play devil's advocate with me, you could look at the fact that he's going to pull 30+% ownership in a big GPP, and in single entries, he might be 50+% owned, and rightfully so. But if that's going to be the case, then Jalen Johnson is going to be sub 20 for sure, and he has the ability to get you 60, 70 fantasy points. By the way, the Nuggets are facing Memphis, so they absolutely – could house the Grizzlies, and that game gets out of control. Okay, so we'll have to help. Marcus did not get access to something. He said he paid for one the other day, so we'll have to help him out. Marcus, hit us up in Discord. If you're not in there already, hit us up in Discord, and we'll get you sorted out. But yeah, for the rest of the way here, if Jalen Johnson's out, how do we not pay attention to Nah, even at 7.5, just because he went nuke mode the other day when these guys were out? And CJ McCollum at 6.8, that's getting a little bit steep for me, but he had 60 fantasy points. So where are you at on those guys in the event these dudes are all out again?
Yeah, they're going to look better. It's just kind of tough because it's the first window of games on the 13-game slate. So I don't really want to lock myself into a bunch of 7 p.m. stuff. On a slate of this size, I think I might consider a max one of the guards, McCollum or Nah, in that situation. You don't have to do that. I think it's kind of the aggressive way to go. I don't mind it, though, just because there is so much else to like. And you can't just waste roster spots on a slate of this size, really. You can't really do the play whoever fits type thing with your last spot. You kind of have to have pretty significant intention when you go. They will better Johnson out, and if Daniels is out, I really think I'd only get to them if Johnson's out. If Dyson's out, it's well, Daniels isn't really a high usage piece to begin with. Minutes should be safer for CJ in that scenario, but Johnson's there eating all the usage and doing all the playmaking. I'm not that excited about it.
Yeah, I think the whole point of being more intentional with what you're doing. I think point per dollar really comes into play here because we could play guys who are not super optimal. Say Jalen Johnson and Dyson Daniels are in, you should not be playing Nickeil Alexander-Walker at 7.5K on 13-game slate if those guys are in, right? And then even if one of them are in, I still feel it just feels like you're forcing it, to a certain extent. But if everybody's out, I would have some interest there, but even then, like there's so many good plays on this slate. We're going to talk about more of them right now. So on the Hornets side, LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, Con Knipple, they all look really, really good. They're all going to pull some ownership. Con coming in with the most right now because he's the cheapest. He's obviously the one that looks the best right now, but you could make a very strong case for all three of them. Maybe not all three of them together in the same lineup, but hey, it's a match with the Hawks, so even that's not that crazy because Miles Bridges does have some usage and he's gone. Diabate's out, so Kalkbrenner at 4.9. He looks like a pretty good value. I don't really think we need to play him given all the other value centers plus Jokic on this slate, but that's also going to make him completely unowned in a good spot against the Hawks. So for GPPs, I think he's in play. And then you have Grant Williams at 3.8. What year is this? Why are we playing Grant Williams still? Grant Williams, though, is 3.8. He's going to play. He's going to push for 30 minutes with no Miles Bridges. I think he is a fair value, but if he gets steamed up to the point where he's like super chalk, like you're in the same boat as like a Micah Potter, where like you can certainly entertain not doing that.
Yeah, I don't think he will be that chalk. Do you know how old Grant Williams is?
I mean, probably 33.
27.
What? Oh, he's been in the league for like a decade.
Yeah,
I swear.
He's an old looking 27.
He's got old man game. That's
dad
for sure.
Bod. Yeah.
He perpetually has always had a dad bod.
Right. Like if Diabate and Bridges are out, there's just a lot of minutes available on the front court. Kalkbrenner, I agree, is not one I'm that interested in. And the other value centers we have who are better. It is a good spot though. Atlanta is a horrible rebounding team. So you can play Kalkbrenner large field, but it doesn't feel great. I think Williams and Salon are okay. Salon is min salary. Pretty thin for this slate, but 3K flat, you could do worse. I would consider max one of the Ball, Bridges, Knipple trio on field where you have less games. These guys are really, really popping, understandably. Wouldn't do that rule over there, but all three of them are going to be somewhat owned on DraftKings as well. So I don't really want to play multiple of them into ownership. Again, in the first window of games on a huge slate. That's just an aggressive approach, I think, for a tournament. Not a bad idea, though, in my opinion. I think, Knipple's the easiest one to get to. I do think he'll be the chalkiest of the bunch. And then LaMelo, it's like, yeah, he's 8K. It feels cheap. The minutes are never really there. Like he's topping out at 30-ish. So it's kind of dicey at a premium position, honestly, like this.
Yeah, like I said, I'm okay with all three of them. I feel like Khan just looks like good chalk at 6'7". I just would, like we've been saying, like I would just be very aware of how much chalk you're getting yourself into. If you're already playing like Jokic and like a bunch of the Pacers and Kings and or like Day'Ron Sharpe, like we're going to talk about him, then maybe don't do that. Maybe stay away from the game altogether, or maybe play LaMelo or Brandon Miller. Just be aware that like you don't want to just eat endless chalk here. It is a 13 game slate to the point where like that's enough games where we don't have to be that worried about ownership, but we also don't want to have everybody in our lineup be somebody who's going to be owned for sure, right? So just be cognizant of that. Bucks and Magic. On the flip side of that is like we can just stay away from certain games. Like there's like 4 or 5 games that look awesome, and there's like obvious plays in a lot of spots. I think there's going to be games where like, yeah, we can entertain it just because somebody projects really well or the game looks good. This really isn't one of them. The Bucks have a 104.5 team, applied total here. Kevin Porter Jr. if Ryan Reynolds got the midday questionable take. So if Kevin Porter Jr. is all by himself, Ryan Reynolds. If KPJ is all by himself at 7'9", he's going to project like a god. He's going to come in with like a 45-point fantasy projection. So yeah, that's interesting and very playable. But I think the Bucks would also be liable to get absolutely murdered, and they might anyways. So I'm not as interested in that as they would be. Kind of hope Rollins just plays, so I don't have to worry about any of this.
Yeah, I think Porter's okay in that scenario. We've seen him put up just like monster scores in even limited minutes. So if it's a situation where he's going to play 30 because of a blowout, he can still get you 45 and be okay. But I'm not sure 45 at 7-9 is winning you anything on a 13-game slate either. So good play. Not someone I'd really be excited to play either. That kind of goes for both teams in this game, though.
Yeah, I just like to look at it. Like, it doesn't always have to be like this, but I like to look at it from a one lineup perspective. If I'm building just one lineup tonight, do I have to have Kevin Porter Jr. in it, even if Ryan Rollins is out? I don't think so. Not necessarily. It's 13 games. There's a lot of plays that look really good. I think he's a good play. I just don't think he's a must for me. If Ryan Rollins is out, though, KPJ aside, do you have any interest in any other Milwaukee guys?
No.
Same. All right. Orlando on the other side, they're like at full strength. Wagner is back. They got everybody there. It just doesn't. Nobody stands out, man. I think you always play Banchero for the upside in tourneys. Like Wagner's not going to be full yet. Wagner's not playable at 7.5. Like I think Anthony Black at 6.7 is kind of interesting. But just with so many mouths to feed, it's like the Toronto Raptors when they're at full strength. I just don't have any interest.
I think Suggs would be the one that I would have minor interest in, but he is up to 7K. Franz is back. They're still priced up from when Franz was out, so it's not something I'm just dying to play. This is a pretty easy fade, except for maybe Suggs and Marshfield.
Yep. All right, Washington in Cleveland, 17-point spread. Godspeed, Wizards. Alexander Sarr is questionable, so we could have more value here via the Wizards. I am going to try to avoid this if I can. Keyshawn George is there at 7K. It seems like the Wizards are just going to kind of play everybody. You have Bilal Coulibaly, you have Champagny, you have Bob Carrington, Trey Johnson's back. I don't know. Like the other day, they sat a bunch of guys, and like we could actually play Will Riley, Jameer Watkins, Sharif Cooper with confidence. I don't think that's what we're looking at. I just think it's a mess, and on a 13-game slate, we can ignore it.
Yeah, I think you can always play Sarr just because he can get 60, and he's 7.4 is getting kind of cheap again. But Brewer spot, horrible team. If he's out, they're also without Vukovic, so I don't really know who would play center.
Anthony Gill.
Anthony Gill, yeah.
I feel like every time this happens, somebody mentions Anthony Gill in Discord, and we're always like, no, never. And like this actually would be the first time you could maybe play him, but you probably shouldn't.
I don't think so. I don't think he's ever playable. Certainly not on a slate this big.
Speaking of a guy who's always looked old, Anthony Gill just perpetually 40. Okay, so on the other side, Cleveland, better late than never, buddy. He's in. He said I'm late, but he's here. The Prince. So Cleveland on the other side, obviously smash spot for them. Blowout risk is very real. I don't think we have to ever go into a slate fearing a blowout, because look at last night. We had 4 games and every game had blowout risk. But on a 13-game slate, you can look at a game with a 17-point spread and say, fuck off. Like, we don't need to do that. If you want to play him, Spida, Harden, Jared Allen, all those 3 are the only guys I'm really looking at here because they have a ton of bodies. Like Jalen Tyson's a good price, but with Harden there, not super psyched to do that. I'd play the top 3 guys as the last guy in if I'm looking for somebody in that range. But I'm not expecting 4 quarters from these guys.
They're better on FanDuel where you don't have Jokic and you don't have the Sacramento stuff going on. So you need someone to pay for. I think Harden's a pretty good one. It is kind of a brutal game. Like Cleveland doesn't really want to play their guys huge minutes normally. So Allen, while it is an amazing spot, especially if Sarr is out and he's facing Anthony Gill, I really don't know if you're going to get more than 28 minutes out of him. And that's a tough sell at 7K. So like I want to like Allen and Harden and Mitchell. I just feel like there's a lot of risk. They can certainly get there in 3 quarters.
Yeah.
That's just not something I want to do on a huge slate like this. Like be worried about the team I'm paying into not getting full minutes. So playable, right. All 3 of those guys, but like hard to prioritize any of them.
If I had to play one, it would be Jared Allen. I think he's getting a little bit expensive. And like when you factor in the blowout and the slate size and all the value and spends at center, so like very quickly he gets out of consideration for me. But if I'm going to invest in one of them, I'm going to take the guy who's $2,000 cheaper than the other 2 and has a just amazing matchup in front of him. Whether Sarr is in or out, it's a really good matchup. So I think he looks really good. I think they're all playable. I'm just not getting there right now. Chicago and Boston, this is another game that I think we can probably cross off. That said, it is a spot where we can get different a little bit. Like I do like Anthony Simons at 6-1 in a vacuum, even in a tough spot. We get immediate revenge game at TD Garden, and just like let's look back at like Simons when he was with Portland. Right, 6-1 is too cheap for what he can do. We know he's going to be a high usage guy. We know he has a high ceiling as a scorer. So 6-1, he's very playable in tournaments. Buzelis at 6-6, he's playable in tournaments. Sexton at 5-1. Mostly Simon, Sexton, maybe Jaden Ivey, but all these guys are going to have roles. If the game stays close, they could absolutely smash their price tags. They still are too cheap. The only reason why we're not gaga over it is because there's just better value.
Yeah, it's also just a horrible spot. They're huge underdogs on the road. And it's kind of a cast of ill-fitting parts roster at this point. Like they traded everybody. Giddy's still out or doubtful. Like you can consider Nick Richards because Jalen Smith is unlikely to play and they just don't have bigs and he's 4-2. But center is so rich, especially with cheap stuff, that it's a pretty tough sell. Not really into the guards. Don't really want to get for Zealots. Sexton on FanDuel again, like shorter slate, better value, but still better value elsewhere on that slate too.
I think he's still cheap enough to consider at both sites. I agree. Definitely would only really look at him as a priority on FanDuel, but he's only 5-1 on DK. So in play, my favorite play here, even though I'm not going to play him, is Simons. On the other side, Boston, Jaylen Brown doesn't project that well for the price, despite a really good matchup. Obviously, a blowout risk, like you said, 13.5 point spread. They have Vooch there who soaks up a little bit of usage, like 20% usage in his debut. So that's a little troubling as far as like ceiling goes when we're looking at these guys. I just think like matchup based, like you can play any of those top four if you really want to. I just think slate size and blowout risk and everything else that goes into it. The only one I'd really get serious about is Jaylen Brown, but I don't really want to play him. I just feel like the other studs on this slate, Jalen Johnson, Cade, Jokic, are where I'd rather put my money.
Brown is a good play. He's always, like we've said, like he's usually getting you 50. And on a slate like this, where there's like one very obvious pay up that everyone's going to play, and then a bunch of other guys who are not going to get played as a result, those secondary guys become pretty valuable. I'm not saying that Brown's ceiling is the same as Jokic's, of course, but you know, there is blowout risk in both games. Maybe Boston plays down to Chicago or whatever, and the game's close, and Jaylen Brown's 60 at 9,800. I think that's pretty valuable also. So like, I'm good with him. I think he's a pretty good play. But that's about it. The Vooch revenge is not enough for me. Don't really want to pay for Peyton Pritchard off the bench, Eric White with everybody in. So Brown's pretty good. Nobody else.
All right, sorry, my monitor froze out there for a second. Yeah, I agree. All right, Indiana and Brooklyn. This is a good source of value. The Pacers only have 9 guys maximum, it looks like. Walker and Potter are both questionable. A bunch of the other dudes are out. They're not really trying to win this game, obviously. Walker looks really good if he's in at 5'8". Potter looks like a really good punt at 3'6". I would want him to start. If he doesn't start or if he's out, Jay Huff at 5'2" suddenly looks really good. Quentin Jackson looks awesome at 3'8". Awesome it's a word. What I mean is they're going to be super shorthanded and he's going to play a lot. So there's that. Obviously the starting lineup is going to be pretty key here. Like if we get a situation where like Talon Peter or Cam Jones end up getting the start, like they suddenly become pretty interesting. But they're all going to get minutes. Like all these guys are going to get like 25 minutes or 20 plus minutes. So Peter at 3K flat is actually kind of interesting to me in big GPPs. But for the most part, I'm looking at Potter, Jackson, and Walker, assuming they play.
Yeah, it's hard to get away from Jackson just because he's under 4K. He's guard forward. He started last night when pretty without Jarris Walker. Furphy is out. So, like, there were minutes available. He played almost 30, I think, including overtime. But in this situation, we've seen him really run up the stats before, including last week when he only played like 17 minutes. He still got there in a big way off the bench, which was pretty annoying at the time. But I feel like he should start this game since he started last night's game. If he does, awesome play. Jarris Walker dealing with illness, so it's a little bit shaky. Didn't play last night through it. But still cheap enough. Should have a lot of usage. Flynn, of course, is an exploitable matchup, so he's good. I'm less enthused about Potter. I just feel like that's a guy everyone's going to play. He also started last night over Huff against New York, which was an interesting call given the matchup. He's cheap enough to still be good. I'm pretty nervous about that one. Like, I feel much more confident in Jackson to get there than Potter. Other than that, like Shepard, Cam Jones, Talon Peter are fine. I think Cam Jones started over Jackson last week in this situation. Jackson's just the better play. He's actually cheaper than Jones tonight, so prefer that. Kobe Brown, Jay Huff, secondary plays. Like, if starting, they look better. Jackson and Walker are really the main ones I'm excited about.
I will say Talon Peter is a guy who could benefit from the way the Nets play defense. 45% three-point shooter in his last year of college ball. Doesn't really do anything else, like, at all. But if he's just sitting there jacking up open threes, that could be something at 3K flat. He's going to be out there and play. He's going to play. Like, he got 29 minutes in the last game. So, just a flyer. On the other side, Nets, Day'Ron Sharpe looks like a lock. 38-point fantasy projection. Going to be really chalky. There are other center plays, so you can certainly make a case to pivot to a Reynaud, to pivot to a Paul Reed, to just pay up and go down from Jokic and pay up at both center spots. Like, that's going to be super different. Go play Jared Allen, for instance. But Sharpe looks awesome. Doesn't look like a guy that I want to fade on this slate. I think, like, on a big slate like this, you want to play the good plays, but you also want to, eat the good chalk. So, like, in my opinion, Sharpe is not a guy I would want to fade, but Potter would be a guy I would want to fade. Doesn't mean Potter can't hit. But I think Sharpe is much more likely to reach his ceiling and to really hurt you if he does. Whereas Potter could go out there and do well technically at 3.6 and get you like 25, and that not be something that you can't overcome. But Sharpe could go get 55.
Yeah, we've seen this a lot from him. Like, every time Claxton's out, it's like an auto Day'Ron Sharpe slate, kind of like when Andre Drummond was, behind Embiid a couple years ago when he was still good.
When he was still good.
So it's hard to get away from that. He's 5'2", so it's not like he's a punt, but he's so good per minute. Indiana is also fucking awful against centers, even when they're healthy. If they're not, so
29 in points in the paint.
Yeah, they can't rebound either. So Day'Ron should do everything out there for Brooklyn. 40 fantasy point median at 5'2" is someone that you're not going to really be able to get away from. Right. So, 13 games at center, especially on FanDuel where you can only play one, it's like there's a lot of opportunity cost with that. Things could go wrong. Maybe he gets foul trouble. Maybe he sprains his ankle in the first quarter or something like that. But
don't wish that on us.
Generally, it's the kind of thing you just kind of play. I feel better about him than Reed. I feel better about him than Reynaud. I just think he's an auto play.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think, like, foul trouble, injury, stuff like that, it's just, you can't actually predict it. If you want to fade him for those worries, you can. It's a 13-game slate. You absolutely can fade anybody. On any slate, you can fade anybody, really. In my opinion, I don't think you should be fading Sharpe or Jokic on this slate. I think getting those flat-out raw points and the highest ceiling player in Jokic and getting, like, the best value of the slate in Sharpe, like, let's just do that. And then if you want to get different and get cute elsewhere, fine. But I wouldn't fade those two guys. So it's locking in two center plays. It is what it is, but they look really good. Do you want anybody else from Brooklyn, though?
I think Clowney is also pretty good. Like, when he's playing power forward exclusively, he just kind of floats around and shoots threes, and that gives him a low floor. But with Claxton out, we've seen him play backup 5 and really get the minutes up there. So I think Clowney at 5K is a pretty awesome play that no one's going to be on. I think you can play him and Sharpe together just because they are pretty affordable. But that's about it. Really into Daniel Wolf or any of the other stuff.
Yeah, certainly not priorities. I think Clowney, Wolf, Damon, and Traore are all playable, but they play everybody. So like, it's tough to feel super excited about those guys. Sharp is a lock though for me. Pistons and Raptors in Toronto, 1 point spread, low scoring game here. No Jalen Duren. So sure, on any other slate, it absolutely would be Paul Reed season. I love Paul Reed here. 5.5K, 33-point fantasy projection. The issue is Sharp is a better play. He has no positional eligibility beyond center. And it's not actually that good of a spot. Like Sharp is in a way better spot, infinitely so. So I just think if you were like, oh, who do I play between Sharp and Reed? It's the easy call. It's Sharp. If you want to pair them and fade Jokic, that is certainly a path to take. I don't mind that. If you're playing a lot of lineups, I love that idea. Same with Reynaud. Like let's just flip those guys around and pair them all up and mix and match with Jokic too. Point is, he looks good, just not good enough. Cade looks awesome though. I love Cade as a spend to pair with Jokic, especially if he's not going to get ownership. If he gets steamed up, like I'm already eating a lot of chalk. I'm playing Jokic. I'm playing some of these Pacers and Kings and Sharps. Like I got to do something to get different. If Cade is different, I love it. If he's not, I'm going to go do something else.
Yeah, it's hard not to like Cade just because you need the raw points. I do think a Jokic fade is certainly merited, and then Cade is like the next guy up, but not a must either. Like if I'm fading Jokic, I'm probably not automatically playing Cade or anything like that. It is not an optimal spot, though it is a tight spread for this game, which helps. So Paul Reed is a good play. He's 5'5", so he's a little more expensive than Sharp. He was priced up preemptively after the other centers got suspended. But we've seen this movie before with Paul Reed, like very good per minute guy. But the Pistons, unlike the Nets, do have a viable backup center available, and that's Tolu Smith. We saw the last time Duren and Stewart were out on January 10th. Paul Reed started, played 22. Tolu Smith got the other 26 off the bench and murdered. So there is a backup. Like if Tolu Smith is playing well, they will just ride the hot hand, and Paul Reed is just kind of sitting over there, not playing. Reed's still a good play. I will still have some of him. I think Smith is very interesting as a full punt at center that absolutely no one's going to play because there's a lot of opportunity cost again, and it's very risky. But he can certainly get there at 3-4. I just think that's the case against Reed compared to like Dayron. So Sharp just kind of has a much higher minutes floor, I think. And that's about it. Not messing with secondary Pistons on this slate.
No. And by the way, the same fears that you have for Sharp, like that anybody would have, like foul trouble. Hello, Reed is definitely at risk of getting into foul trouble. And then all of a sudden, like that would probably be your path to Tolu Smith paying off, right? Is like Reed gets in foul trouble, or they just decide to go with Smith more. So you can play into that. If you know Paul Reed's gonna get some ownership right now, he's coming like 17. I would bet the over on that. I would bet a lot of people are going to end up pairing these value centers and fading Jokic. We'll see what the ownership actually looks at later, but keep that in mind. Raptors side, they have everybody back. Potentially, Pirtle is questionable. He'll be limited if he is back. Colin Murray-Boyles is the only one out here, so Memu at 5'4" is kind of an interesting value if Pirtle doesn't play. Nobody's going to be on him at all, and he doesn't have to face Stewart or Duren, so it's a little bit better than usual. You can always play Scotty Barnes in tournaments. You can always play any of these guys in tournaments, but when everybody is there, nobody really stands out. I think it's Memu if Pirtle is out. I like him a little bit, but not really on the Raptors otherwise.
Yeah, Mamu has a pretty similar range of outcomes. The guys like Reed and Sharp, like he can certainly get 50 plus, and he's 5,400. And no one's going to play him at all. Even if Pearl's out, I don't really see him getting attention. So he's another like really strong 5K-ish center. Sure. He's behind Sharp and Reed and Reynaud and maybe Cardwell, but you know, he's not that different. And if he's going to be 2% owned, then there's a very easy straight line pivot you can do to save yourself a lot of ownership. So I do like that a good amount, but that's really it. I don't want to fuck around with anything else on Toronto.
No, it's a real bummer that some of these centers, Cardwell does, but these other guys don't have power forward eligibility as well. That would be nice. Just load up on these dudes instead of playing Micah Potter. Knicks and the Sixers. Knicks played yesterday in an overtime game, so their guys are tired. OG already ruled out. It seems like everybody's going to play, though. Josh Hart, to me, looks really good here with OG out at 7-1. Does not project that well, but we know the ceiling is there. 55 fantasy points from him yesterday. Cat continues to be really cheap, but I never like Cat against Joel Embiid. He just shrinks in that spot. Certainly cheap at 8-1, but he just does not get it done against Joel Embiid. Jalen Brunson, you can play. He's displayed a ceiling lately. But I got to say, I'm not really feeling it. It's a tight spread, but it's also a low total. And these games just kind of end up being slugfests. So, like, you can make a case for Brunson. Certainly, you can play Hart because nobody's going to be on him. Kind of like a direct pivot off of like a Knipple. But I'm not really interested in playing Knicks that much.
Yeah, I think the main four, at least the top three, not including Bridges, maybe are pretty interesting just because at center, like everyone's going to play the same guys. So any center who's not Jokic, Dayron, or Paul Reed, and maybe Reno is going to be completely unknown, and that includes Towns. 81 is pretty cheap. The minutes for him are not as strong with Robinson in, which is the case tonight. It's not a great matchup, but I think for the dollar at 81, he can obviously pay that off. So I would be over the field on him. It doesn't take a lot to do that. So I plan on being over on Towns. I think Brunson's okay. 9-1's just kind of steep for the situation. He does get a little more usage without OG. So it's okay. Not my favorite play. I think Towns is pretty clearly the one you'd want the most. Hart's solid. I agree. Like a Knipple pivot. I think his ownership might be a little higher just because people see that game log from last night, but not to the degree it matters on the 13-game slate.
Nope, probably not. All right, Philly, Embiid is questionable. If he's in, he's fine. He's a fine spend. There's Maxey there too. Similar price, similar projection. Not really the best matchup with the Knicks. Down low, Mitch Robinson is there, of course. Joel Embiid always seems to get up to play Cat, though. So if Cat is on him to any degree, he may eat his lunch. Oubre, I think, is a little bit interesting. I hate the price, but like the matchup could not be better for Oubre. The Knicks let you shoot threes. He loves to shoot threes. VJ is in the same discussion. I think VJ is a little bit safer. I think he offers more of a ceiling, but they're like the same price. So I think they're interesting as like last guys in. I wouldn't like build around them at all. Watford at 4-4. If Embiid is out, he's kind of interesting. But I'm not getting to Philly either. I just don't really like this game.
Embiid is just another of the Towns-like centers who's just going to go completely overlooked, even though he could put up 70 and outscore Jokic potentially for a significant discount. And he has had no issue in this matchup whatsoever. So I think he's a good play again. Just these other centers are going to go overlooked. You can always consider these guys to be different. I think the matchup shakes out pretty well for Maxey, given the Knicks' 3-point allowed prowess or whatever, but kind of steep at 9-6. Not a bad play for Embiid, though, overall. Nobody else.
Yeah, in GPPs for sure. It's just like it's hard for me because like obviously I see Cat and Embiid as really intriguing, high upside, unowned centers, but like how do you go away from all these other centers that look so good and dollar for dollar are just way better plays? Like it's really tough. Like if I'm not playing Sharp, I want to play Reed. If I'm not playing Reed, I want to play Reno. You know what I mean? Like if I'm not playing Reno, I want to play Mamu. And then I'm also fading Jokic.
They're not sharp pivots or anything.
No, I'm just saying though. There's a lot of different combinations you could consider. I think where I'm at right now is I'm stuck in the value range or the Jokic value range most likely. But I hear you for sure in tournaments. Clippers and Rockets. They just played this game. Kawhi is questionable. Played last night. So I mean, if he's in at 10K, you can always play him. But I would imagine he's a decent bet to sit. And even if he sits, like the rest of this lineup looks really gross. I suppose there's value to be had there potentially. Like maybe Yannick at 3.7, Mathurin at 5.8 if he plays and gets extended. But nothing here like, I mean, Jordan Miller at 5K if Kawhi is out. I don't know, man. None of it feels very good.
If Kawhi's out, this is a team you fade 100%. And if Kawhi's in, you play Kawhi, and that's it.
I know I'm not playing him anyways, but yeah, I'm not eager to play trashy players against the Rockets on the road. Rockets on the other side, this is a decent spot for them. Şengün, KD, Amen. I think I'd only really be excited to play Şengün. Like, we know KD keeps getting the run. He gets good usage. Like, there's nothing wrong with KD. Just the ceiling is not massive these days. So I don't really want to invest 8.9K in him. Reed Shepherd's kind of interesting at 5'4", going to go completely overlooked. Probably going to get some extra burn in this game. So I think he's interesting, but obviously not a priority. Ricky came late, but he's here, baby.
Zero exposure to the Rockets.
Oh, team bias, no more. All right, Portland and Minnesota. In Minnesota, 6-point spread. Denny is still limited. He was limited the other day, and he put up 58 fantasy points in 26 minutes, 36% usage rate. Whew. GPP for life, 9.2K. Denny against the Timberwolves. I'm not doing it, but you can if you want, I guess. Klingon feels a little bit expensive for the matchup. There's just nothing here for me. The Blazers side looks terrible.
Yeah, it does.
All right, so on the Minnesota side, Anthony Edwards got the midday questionable tag. If he's in at 9.7 with a 46-point fantasy projection in an up-tempo spot, very playable as shooting guard. If he's out, Julius Randle would project like a god. Rudy Gobert against Klingon, like, I'm sorry, Klingon, you're going to get eaten alive. Nasri at 6'2" off the bench. Io, DiVincenzo, Bones, like, depending on who is in the starting lineup, if Edwards is out, like, a lot of these guys could look really good.
Yeah, I hope he plays. I don't want to mess with this. I don't like it at all.
I know the slate is like already very straightforward. Let's not get it, let's not muck it up.
I think Edwards is fine. He's just kind of pricey. And they do have a high total, and it is a pretty good spot overall. Portland does play fast, so I think Ant's okay. I don't love that he's on an illness tag, though. That's always cause for pause, as you say.
Flu game. I
think Gobert is in a fine spot. There's no way you're playing fucking Rudy Gobert on this slate.
No, that's what I'm saying. It would have to take something substantial to pull me away from a 4-pack of smash center values and Jokic. And it ain't going to be Rudy Gobert.
Indeed.
It's a good spot for him. I think Klingon cannot defend, apparently. So you'd think the monster of the man that he is would be able to. But whoever faces him is like a pretty good bet to get 40 fantasy points at least. But yeah, I think Julius would be the main focal point if Ant is out. And then you can look at the guards, depending on who starts. Obviously, Nas would get a boost too. Miami and New Orleans, this game looks very stackable. Bam getting all the usage with Hero and Norm out. Andrew Wiggins may also be out. I actually like Khalil Ware a lot. I did anyways, until the other guys just ended up looking a lot better. He was going to smash in the last game. He started 17 fantasy points in 14 minutes, 24% usage rate. He just fouled out against the Jazz in 14 minutes. Super annoying. Anyways, he looks good again. It's the Pelicans. He might start again. I don't see why he wouldn't. He's only 5'1", so he's right there in that 4-pack we've been talking about. Make it a 5-pack, baby. I think he looks like a good play. Bam is another way to get different if you want to. There is a ceiling to be had here against the Pels. Hamey at 6'7" feels like a lot, but if Wiggins is out, Hamey does have a path to a big game here.
It's just too big of a slate to really mess around with Jaime. He's fully priced. They still have bodies they'll play. Yaku Shonis is playing 30 minutes lately. Myron Gardner came out of nowhere the other day and then went back away in the last game. There's just no reason to mess with Eric Spoelstra's daily lineup charade. I think Ware is a good play. I think Bam is a great play. Mm-hmm. But that's it. The rest of it can go away.
All right, on the Pels side, you got Zion running into Bam. Not super psyched about that, but the ceiling is there, and he's not that expensive. Plus, he's power forward eligible, or he is only power forward eligible, so that's nice. Trey Murphy at 8.2, point guard only forever and always. Not sure why, but I think he's a pretty good play. They both are in play for sure. Jeremiah Fears at 4.6 is an okay value. Herbert Jones, per usual, 4.5 with positional flexibility there. He's an okay value as well. Don't think either of them are priorities. I think if I got to anybody here, it would be Trey Murphy, but even that is not happening.
Yeah, I think Bay would be the one that stands out the most just because he's always kind of mid-6s and he's had quite a ceiling since he was sort of kept in the starting lineup for Fears. Again, huge slate. tough spot. Good pace for this game, and it's kind of a tight spread. The Pelicans are actually favored in what I'm seeing, which is kind of unexpected.
Odd.
But, not excited for fears. Murphy and Zion, not so much for me.
No, I'd rather play Knipple even at ownership over Murphy for $1,000 less. Sacramento is a team I like, and everybody else will too. Devin Carter looks awesome. I don't think you can fade him. I mean, you can, but I wouldn't. Dylan Cardwell looks great. Reynal looks great. Clifford looks great. Like, there's nothing wrong with getting to 3, if not all 4 of those guys if you want to. Right now, I'm definitely getting to Carter, and I'm trying to get to another one. Cardwell's the easiest to get to. So Reynal, just like by default, because of how we've been talking about center, he actually could go a little bit overlooked. Like, I just don't know how he's going to be like super chalk when you have Sharp and Reed, who just naturally people are going to assume are more reliable. And then you have Jokic, you have Embiid, you have Cat, you got Bam. Like, you have so many other options. I don't even buy 22% ownership. I think he'll be less. So I think he's kind of interesting. They all look good, not touching. Huh?
He's going to be way less than 22%, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So for that reason, he looks really interesting. Not touching 7K DeMar. I think Plowden actually is kind of interesting at 4-2 though, because he's got guard forward eligibility, and like DeMar is not going to play the whole game. He might not play at all. Precious Achua is not going to play a ton. They're just like, it's youth movement. They're tanking. You got to look at those first 4 guys and do something there. I think Devin Carter is the starting point, and then if we're getting into a spot where we're like really worried about ownership, Reynal, maybe even doing something with Plowden, I'm into all of it.
Yeah, I think Reynal is just like a really good leverage play on guys like Ware and Reed specifically. Just 5K. We saw the ceiling in the last game, like 39 minutes without Sabonis, and now Russ is also out. So more usage, fewer bodies. Really good spot, obviously, against the Jazz too. So Reynal looks good. Cardwell looks fine. I like that he has power forward. Obviously, that's helpful on a slate like this. Devin Carter, 80% owned on a 13-game slate. Sounds certainly like something that is not great. I think you can fade him just because the ownership is going to be so insane on a guy the field is very confident is good, who may not be good at all. So I am probably a must play, essentially. I'm going to play him a lot. I just feel like of the chalk pieces, Dayron, etc., Carter is the one who's easily the flimsiest. But again, they don't have Russ. Carter played 29 minutes in the last game with Russ in. So he should be a good play. He should get there. It is Utah. That just feels kind of gross to me. And then I think Nick Clifford is fine. 5'5" is getting up there too, but shooting guard small forward is helpful. I would never play Daquan Plowden on this slate, though.
I'm just saying as a way to get different there. But yeah, I'm not really excited to play Plowden. I'm not going to play him. I don't like the only argument against Devin Carter is the ownership. I don't really care if he's good. He's going to be out there for like 30 plus minutes against the Jazz. There's way too many good things working in his favor. Point guard, shooting guard eligibility, not expensive at 4.5K. He's going to start. He's going to play 30 plus minutes if the game stays close, and they don't have any bodies, so he's going to play that much even if it doesn't stay close. The only reason to not like him is ownership. And like I was saying, like I feel like there's like 3 plays for sure on this slate that we just play and we just don't even care about the ownership and move on. I think he's one of them. I don't see a way around him. Anybody's fadeable. You would have a massive edge on the field if he got hurt or benched or just sucked. He could go out there and shoot 0 for 15. You're right. But I think we need to play the best plays, and he's one of the best plays. So I'm going to definitely play him everywhere. Utah on the other side, I want nothing to do with them. I think the only guy that we can or should play is going to be Isaiah Collier. There's no Keontae George. They don't really have another point guard that they can trust. I'm not trusting or messing around with any of their other starters. Even he seems to be capped at this point. They're not going to play their starters in the fourth quarter, so maybe you'll get 30 plus minutes out of Collier. I think at 7-8, that makes him playable against the Kings, but he's now expensive enough to the point where I feel like it's, you fuck around and find out kind of thing.
He's the only one you can play at all.
Right.
I think, if it goes into garbage time, which seems kind of unlikely, given the state of these teams, he would still get minutes. We saw him get, the end of the game last time against Miami when they were benching their other regulars. So I feel like he's immune from the Will Hardy shenanigans. The issue is he's almost 8K. So I think he's a fine play. Probably going to be under-owned, but it's a huge slate. He's a point guard. A lot of ways to go. He also really playable.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, Memphis and Denver. Memphis just has a bunch of guys who all play 20-plus minutes. Ty Jerome is not topping 20 minutes. If it was another slate, 5-8K, Ty Jerome with the per-minute guy he is, I'd be okay with it. Gigi Jackson at 5-4, I think, is the only playable Memphis guy here. Like, all these guys are going to play a little bit. They're all cheap enough that you can consider them. But Gigi is the only one who really stands out. But do I feel great about him going up against Jokic? No. So I think Memphis is a full cross-off. If you're playing Jokic or Jamal Murray, I don't think you have to force a comeback. There's too much else on this slate to feel good about to force that.
Jerome's the only one who's playable, just because he apparently is Jokic of guards. So even if he's playing 20 minutes, he can still get you 40 plus somehow. But it feels kind of gross, and nobody else is good at all.
No, I don't think you can actually play him on a 13-game slate because his usage rate is obscene, and he's good. He's a good real life player, and he's playing really well. But demanding a guy at 5'8" to keep that up, it's just not sustainable, really. So it's asking too much on a big slate. You can do a lot better than that. Denver, Jokic looks like a god against Memphis. They have 0 people who can stop him, 12.2K. So, I mean, hey man, let's talk about Jokic. Obviously he looks great. Let's talk about the other way. Why would we not want to play Jokic on this slate?
It's only the ownership, just like with Devin Carter, and it's center with him. So like you're foregoing a lot of other awesome plays to play him. Obviously he's the best of all. He's the best player maybe who ever lived, but he's going to be 70% owned in smaller field contests. People are going to play him. They're going to play him with Sharp or Reed, probably Sharp. So that's forcing you into a pretty similar build with a lot of the field. And this is a game that could certainly blow out. Like Denver hasn't been great. Memphis is banged up. It does have like a 14-point spread though. And we talked about Cleveland in a similar spread being the team that we don't really want to get to because, they're probably going to blow them out. So Denver is in a very similar situation. Jokic in under 30 minutes can still put up 80 fantasy points. I'm not fading him at all. I'm not fading him entirely. I mean, I will fade him in some lineups. I do think there are so many alternatives and so many ways to go on this slate that getting locked into the same 2 centers everyone else is playing is kind of selling yourself short. So the easiest path to win, while it may not happen that often, I think the easiest path to win is just doing something else with an expensive center spot, or you pay up somewhere else and play the 2 cheap ones or something like that. Jokic is most likely to be the highest scoring player on the slate. Just the way the slate's coming together, I think getting from him makes no sense.
Yeah, shout out to Jester Flop in Discord. He said, yeah, it's kind of interesting to consider the fade, but then what? Because like there are options, but who is actually going to meet Jokic like reliably? So not many. Like Jalen Johnson,
they don't have to match him. They just need
no,
him
not
to
directly. I'm just
60,
saying, like,
and then
if he gets 75 fantasy points, you do have to make up for that somewhere in your lineup, obviously. And because if you're in a single entry or something, and like 50, 60% of people have Jokic and you're missing out on 75 fantasy points, it becomes a problem in a hurry. So I think in a big GPP, it is much more viable. I think in a single entry, you just eat that chalk and play the best ceiling player of the slate and find other ways to get different. That's what I would do. Probably that's what I'm probably going to do. It just seems like it's tough to get, like, even on a 13-game slate. That said, if you do it, Murray within that same game is a very interesting leverage play at what, $3,000 cheaper, almost $4,000. And then you have all these other guys that you've been talking about. So if you're gonna fade Jokic, do you think, like, what's your favorite approach then? If you're in lineups, you're not going to play Jokic. Do you, like, if you had to tell somebody in one lineup, let's fade Jokic, how are you going about that? Like, what's your favorite way to go about that?
Probably just paying up for someone like Bam or Towns or Embiid, like we talked about, and then using the extra salary elsewhere. But I do think playing Murray is obviously a good leverage play. The only issue is Murray also is going to be somewhat popular, it looks like. I don't really know if that's going to be the case. He is almost 9K with Jokic in. I don't know if people are excited to play that. But
I would bet
if
the
Jokic
under on that
fails,
ownership.
if Jokic fails and the Nuggets still have success, there's a pretty good chance Murray's the one leading the charge. So I do think playing Murray just simply instead of Jokic makes a lot of sense on this slate.
Yeah. I think if I'm going to do it, I think there's too many good value centers to not just go value with the 2 center spots. And then you're looking at Cade and Jalen and the other Jalen, that kind of thing, most likely. Or you're kind of then suddenly going, oh, let's go a little bit more mid-range with the Hornets guys, maybe like Harden or Spida is your spend up, that kind of thing. So certainly I think there's a path there, but I do think whatever path that is, it is probably going to require Jokic to not really get there. We got a question from Ricky here, which is kind of interesting. He says, when playing this big of when playing this big of a slate, does it matter how many players from the early games you get? My answer would be no. I don't think you ever should build based off of where a game is located on the slate, especially like on a slate like this. Like, we have 3 9 p.m. Eastern games, so like there's no hammer game. Like, you don't really have to worry about that either. It's just like, let's play the best plays and make the best lineup possible if you're doing a single entry. And if you're max entering a big GBP or something, you're just trying to get combinations and like the best string of lineups together. What would you say?
I think it matters a lot on slates with news in the late games.
Sure.
You don't want to lock yourself into Orlando at 7 p.m. or whatever if Jokic is questionable, which is not the case tonight, of course. Devin Booker's questionable. I think that's like the one late news item that is outstanding. That's not a huge deal, in my opinion. But I do think on this slate, just naturally locking yourself into early games is kind of suboptimal from swappability, just because I don't think the field typically takes advantage of swap enough. Like, starting lineups will change. You should see how your lineup's doing. And then if you need leverage, swap off the chalk you have, things like that good players do that the field is kind of overlooking. Even if there's no breaking news, you can still make pivots kind of based on how your early guys are going. So I don't love really ever tying myself into like 4 guys in the first game window of the night. Unless it's like an extreme example. We have Indiana or something like that if they were at 7, which they're not. Just, you have to be very aware of the ones you're playing early, because there's a chance that you're playing suboptimal guys early compared to the value that might open up later.
Yeah, I agree with that, actually. I also think that like what the games are matters too. Like, for instance, why am I locking myself into Milwaukee and Orlando? I don't want to do that. Why am I locking myself in and like stacking up Washington, Cleveland, a 17-point spread almost by accident? The flip side of that, obviously, especially when you have Atlanta, Charlotte in that like 3-game 7 p.m. block, is that one of those games could be like the nuke stack game of the slate. Like, the Hawks Hornets could absolutely be the game where you want Jalen, LaMelo, Knipple, and like you need those guys or something, right? But at the same time, on a 13-game slate, like, do you need anybody? No, your team just needs to be competitive, and you need to have like just not assy plays completely nuking your lineup. But definitely agree with you as far as late swap goes. Like, if we do have a situation where news drops and all of a sudden, like, okay, SGA is not on the slate because he's out, but if SGA was in the slate and suddenly he was questionable and we had interest in OKC for whatever reason, then yeah, suddenly you're going to want to make some room for that OKC value. Not really something we need to worry about today. Speaking of OKC, last game of the night here, OKC against the Suns. They are favored by 9 on the road. Chet is pretty expensive. Jalen is limited. Hartenstein is limited. I really don't have any interest in here at all. I just think there's better value elsewhere. If you're going to do something, I think like Isaiah Joe, Kason Wallace make the most sense, but I don't think anybody here is necessary. Plus, it's on the road, and Phoenix is not a fun matchup.
Yeah, 5,900 Kason Wallace sounds pretty bad to me. I think the whole thing seems bad. Bullshit.
Yep. Kind of the same on the Suns. Obviously, Devin Booker, it's a nice price at 8-3, not a great spot. If he's out, you could certainly talk up usage-wise Dylan Brooks. There's no Grayson Allen. Jalen Green is also not going to play in this game. So I think Dylan Brooks is an okay mid-range play at 6'8". Gillespie, I guess, would be in the conversation, matchup aside. Mark Williams, good point per dollar guy, or good per minute guy. I always like Osa Iguodala at 4.3 just because he is a good per minute guy off the bench and nobody's going to play him, but not really the slate for it. I feel like I already wasted too much time on the Suns.
Yeah, I mean, Mark Williams on a back-to-back could always be out, so maybe you can add Osa to the list, but still think he's behind.
But against Hartenstein,
he's the cheapest, but like, I don't know if he has the ceiling to match someone like Day'Ron or even Paul Reed. So probably kind of thin. I think Gillespie, if Booker's out, is fine. Gillespie's a really good leverage play off of Booker last night, even though it didn't quite work out. But it is a brutal spot, so not really that interesting.
Ricky says, would you want 2 from the early games and hope they go off, then play the night to get leverage? Example, Harden and maybe Porter Jr., then play all 9 p.m. games. I mean, I guess I just don't unless you're factoring in late swap, I'm not going to get overly fixated on the timing of games. Like, I feel like I used to do this a lot in the past, and you called me out on this once. Like you said, I always had to have a hammer game play, and I often did because I wanted a low-owned guy that when everybody else has their final scores, I have like an unowned Anthony Edwards in the last game of the night creeping me up the standings. But the reality is, if Anthony Edwards is my last play at no % ownership and he gets 50, but I bypassed a better play who got 65, I made a mistake with my lineup building then, right? Like anytime you can get leverage on the field, you want to consider it. But I just think personally, I think the timing thing, unless you're completely locking yourself up in early games and you want to be flexible, I don't think it really matters.
Yeah. Agreed.
All right, totally fair. Okay, this was a really long live stream. Hopefully this helped people out. If it didn't, whoops. If it does, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. If you want even more advice, by the way, it is a fluid slate. Like it's a long live video we did, broke down everything, pointed you to the plays that we like. There's a lot of directions to go on a 13-game slate. I would suggest 2 things. Number 1, just try not to take unnecessary risks. And number 2, head to dfsbuild.com. If you're not a member already, it's just $5.99 for our core plays for this slate and every single slate for the month, plus everything else that we do. It's a great deal. I don't think you can beat it. So definitely do that. And if you don't want to pay any money, that's cool. Subscribe to the channel. Come join us in Discord. Share your lineups and ask all the questions you want. Thanks for watching and good luck.